This is an Eyewitness News election update. Hey everybody, I'm Mike Marza. So how does Mayor Adams' exit change the dynamic of this election, or does it really change anything? The answers, well, that depends on who you ask. For Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa, a narrowing field gives them the opportunity to try to convince Adams supporters that they are the best fit for City Hall. For frontrunner Zohran Mamdani, well, his campaign says nothing really changes. It is business as usual. Today, he traded barbs with President Trump, who threatened to withhold federal funding from New York if Mamdani wins. And if you were wondering where Eric Adams was...
Turn it to the right, turn it to the right. Turn it hard to the right.
This is kind of bizarre. He was on his way to Gracie Mansion, and Mayor Adams spotted a family stuck in the road trying to push their vehicle out of traffic, and Mayor ended up pushing them himself. Well, a lot has changed today in the election. We'll catch you up with everything that developed with ABC News political reporter and ABC's political director Avery Harper in just a moment. But first up, NJ Burkett catches us up from the campaign trail.
At a news conference in Upper Manhattan, Democratic Socialist frontrunner Zohran Mamdani seemed to laugh at the president's threats.
I think that Donald Trump is going through the stages of grief.
On his social media account, Mr. Trump threatened federal funding for New York if Mamdani wins City Hall. He is going to have problems with Washington like no mayor in the history of our once great city, he wrote. Remember, he needs the money from me as president in order to fulfill all of his fake communist promises. He won't be getting any of it, he said, so what's the point of voting for him?
He's doing so because he knows that Andrew Cuomo will clear the way for Donald Trump's agenda. And New Yorkers are sick and tired of that agenda. They are sick and tired of what has passed for leadership from Andrew Cuomo.
Tonight, the former governor sees it differently.
Does it seem like Trump is putting his thumb on the scale for you?
No.
Why not?
It's the exact opposite.
The opposite.
I'll tell you who Donald Trump wants. Donald Trump wants Zohran Mamdani to win. It would be a political bonanza for the Republican Party. They would take the poster of Zohran and run around the country and say, this is how crazy the Democrats have gotten. That they elected a 33-year-old socialist who wants to abolish the police, legalize prostitution, legalize the drug trade, and sympathizes with terrorists.
Curtis Sliwa said he disagrees with the president, and he's not dropping out.
We cannot sacrifice this great city because it might be good for my party in the midterm elections. Absolutely not. So I am here to fight. I carry the Republican banner, and I am not surrendering or retreating.
Joining me now is ABC News political director Avery Harper. Avery, great to see you. Great to chat with you. So much to get into as so much has changed in this New York City mayoral race. First up, let's talk about President Trump's comments today, threatening to remove funding or withhold funding to New York City if Zohran Mamdani ends up winning the mayoralship. Does President Trump's words or threats like this, do you think it will have any impact on this race moving forward?
I mean, arguably, it could be a boon to Mamdani and get him some more enthusiasm with his base of supporters. Ultimately, I think that part of his ascent is really about anti-Trump sentiment here in New York City, a place where we know that Democrats far outnumber Republicans.
And so let's talk about moving forward and the remaining candidates. Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, and we mentioned the frontrunner, Zohran Mamdani. How does the removal of Mayor Adams in the race change the dynamics?
You know, it's so funny. I actually do not think that it's going to make much of a difference for any of the other remaining candidates because you have to remember that Eric Adams had such a small share of support. When he dropped out on Sunday, he was actually polling in the single digits, and that is not enough for any of the other candidates who are not named Zohran Mamdani to have a much clearer path to victory. I think for both Sliwa and Cuomo, it's going to be an uphill battle.
And you see some of these polls, and who knows what to make of the polls, right? But the polls that we have and the information that we have right now, if you do a hypothetical matchup between just Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani, it is a closer race. However, Curtis Sliwa says he's staying in the race. Do you anticipate any changes, or what could change as we are now about 5 weeks to go?
Well, listen, you mentioned that we are in the run-up to this election, and this is when folks are really starting to pay attention, and anything can really shake up the race. I mean, we're looking ahead to what are going to be two really pivotal mayoral debates, and those could be really big moments in this race and could change the trajectory of the race for any of these candidates. So we'll just have to wait and kind of see what happens there.
All right, let's go through some of the playbooks for each of the candidates. Zohran Mamdani, you mentioned the debates ahead and some of the more prominent position points that he's going to have to explain and answer to, especially stuff he said in the past and what he believes moving forward. What do you think his best plan of attack is as we close in now on 5 weeks? Does he need to do any of these large-scale events?
I think he's going to want to answer questions for those who might be wary of him. You know, I think he's going to be reaching out to voters who aren't necessarily, safely in his camp. He is trying to expand his tent and solidify a victory come election day. It remains to be seen if he's going to be able to woo some of those voters who might have been in Eric Adams' camp, or those who might have some, shrinking confidence in Cuomo's ability to win. I don't think those who are currently supporting Curtis Sliwa are likely to come over to Mamdani's camp, but there's still work for him to do.
And so let's talk about Curtis Sliwa, because again, he is adamant. He says he can't be bought. He can't be shooed out of this race by any means. Do you think that there is a world where he does exit this race, that his mind will change and he will remove himself from this contest?
I mean, he's remained pretty adamant that he is staying in this race. I think unlike Eric Adams, who we know and from reporting that he was having conversations behind the scenes about what his exit strategy could be, what he could do next, I think for Curtis Sliwa, this is a race that he wants to stay in. It just remains to be seen where his path to victory could lie.
Especially when you look at the recent polling. He was polling in single digits a lot of times, maybe low double digits in front of Mayor Adams, but still.
Right, but far behind both Mamdani and Cuomo.
So if you're a Republican in this race or just watching this race, wanting to support a candidate, we know New York City politics. We know it leans heavily left. But what do you do if you're a Republican? Because you've heard about the President Trump influence in this race. You've heard about some of the national politics keeping a close eye on this race. Is there a world where you would urge your Republican supporters here in this city to vote for an Andrew Cuomo versus a Curtis Sliwa, who is the Republican candidate?
I mean, there has been conversation, and we've heard President Trump's weigh in on this race about it being a two-person race between Mamdani and another challenger. And so I think there are many Republicans throughout the city of New York who are trying to figure out exactly what to do, how best to use their vote. There are folks who are incredibly wary of Mamdani and his platform and some of the things that he has promised on the campaign trail. And there are others who, might not see Curtis Sliwa as a really viable candidate. And so, those folks are going to have to make a really tough decision for themselves at the ballot box.
And let's talk about Andrew Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo. And he's one who was a Democrat, and he's running as an independent because of the way the primary shook out. So if you are Andrew Cuomo, what do you need to do to gain some ground? Because the time is running out.
Right. You're going to want to make an appeal to those Eric Adams supporters, right, for those folks to come along to your side of things. And you're going to want to make the argument, particularly to Republicans who might not feel like they have a home in this race, to make the argument that, hey, I might be the person who could, advance over a Zohran Mamdani if you are to support and vote for me. I think that is his remaining path. That is the only way that he could possibly come out on top. And again, it just remains to be seen exactly what some of those New Yorkers are going to choose. But for him, those debates that are coming up in October are going to be incredibly important.
Interesting. Andrew Cuomo and President Trump both aligned to the fact that they believe that Zohran Mamdani is an existential threat to the city of New York. They've described it as such. So if you are Andrew Cuomo, and if you're looking at these polls and some of the recent polling, I believe it said that, well, first of all, the criticism of Zohran Mamdani and the weapon really used from a lot of Republicans saying that he's a democratic socialist. They turned that into a communist title, saying that it is bad for New York City. However, in some of these polls, 2/3 of people who responded in the polls in New York City say that would not be a bad thing if a Democratic socialist were to be a mayor in New York City. What do you make of the state of where the city is right now and how Mamdani has been able to climb to the top?
You know, I think it's remarkable. I think about 4 years ago when Eric Adams won Gracie Mansion, and he won and was calling himself the future of the Democratic Party as someone who was a moderate, somebody who was pro-police. And that is the antithesis of the moment that we find ourselves in right now, where the energy is really behind progressives and progressive ideas. And listen, we know that Zohran Mamdani has really captured the enthusiasm of New York City voters around issues of affordability. That is something that New York City voters have been able to relate to and that have arguably boosted his campaign.
Yeah, by the way, affordability across the country, this is really a national conversation that's been happening. I know you and I have talked about this a lot. So in the national landscape, how does this race play in the national political landscape?
Right. I think there are a lot of folks who are looking at New York City and what happens here as reflective of what could possibly be in the future of the Democratic Party. But listen, I think New York is a special case. I am actually looking more to some of the gubernatorial races that we're going to see this fall as more reflective possibly of where the national sentiment lies in terms of the feelings about the rebuilding of the Democratic Party. You know, in New Jersey, you see Mikey Sherrill. In Virginia, you see Abigail Spanberger. These are two more moderate candidates, national security experts who are also having the conversation about affordability, but in a way that is more comfortable for many moderate voters across the country.
Yeah, you mentioned that race, you know, Jack Ciattarelli, Mikey Sherrill, something that's heavily watched, certainly here in New York, and something that even those two candidates have been asked about the Mamdani influence in the city of New York. And then just wrapping up a couple of more. Mamdani, 33 years old. A lot of criticism has been launched at him with what experience does he have? How will he navigate that? As you mentioned, people are now taking a closer look as we're a little more than a month away.
Look, I think after 2024 and what we saw happen on the Democratic side of things, Joe Biden bowing out of that race, after lots of concerns about the age of our Democratic leaders and of political leaders just across both parties as well. So I think he is able to make the argument that he is ushering in a new generation of leadership, and that is what's required to address today's problems rather than looking at elder statesmen. So I think there is definitely energy that is behind both the young and the progressive in New York City.
And then finally, when you talk about the politics in New York City, we've mentioned a heavily blue city. If you look at the numbers and you look at just the way that elections have fallen. But when you also think about the assembly in Albany and you think about the city council here in particular, how will a potential new, well, now we know it will be a new mayor coming in. How will he be able to work with the council first and then the assembly up in Albany to try to get some of the things that he wants to get done?
I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Zohran Mamdani to be able to get a lot of the things that he wants to get done. I think, you know, when you look at the threat that President Trump dangled today in terms of funding for the state and the city, right? I think that is of concern for many of the lawmakers in Albany, as it is for state legislatures and leaders of localities and states across the country. When you have somebody who wants Trump or Trump wants to be the target of their ire, it becomes really difficult for them to get things done. And so it's going to be a real tough thing for Mamdani to navigate if he is elected mayor of New York City.
And you mentioned as well, President Trump and Zohran Mamdani going at it on social media, and perhaps they both enjoy that dynamic because both sides are energized by that sort of clash. And we'll see how it plays out as we're just a little more than 5 weeks away before the election. Avery Harper, always great to get your perspective. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, this Tuesday marks 5 weeks to go until the election to pick a new mayor of New York City. For the first time since the 1990s, a one-term mayor now saying he will not seek re-election. So it opens it up for a new mayor to take charge of the biggest city in this country. Of course, so many twists and turns so far. More to come, no doubt. So we'll follow everything along the way. We invite you to stay with us and get up-to-date info and all the alerts right to your phone or wherever you get your news these days. ABC 7 NY, and of course right here on Channel 7. I'm Mike Marza. Have a good one.